Hello everyone, thanks very much for coming in. My name's Westley, I'm a Grants and Programmes Manager at PRS Foundation. I'm here talking with the great Len Frick. I hope many of you saw him last night, which was an incredible show. We've got quite a lot to get through, there's a lot of stuff to talk about, so I'm just going to get cracking. But just quickly, after this we have a mixer next door. If you have any questions about funding, come and have a chat with me there. Hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end of this, which will be about what Len Frick's done and all the great things that have happened. So without further ado, Len Frick, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the kind of music that you create?
Oh, good question. Who am I? So I'm Len Frick, also known as Lamar Freckleton, by my government name, for those that know me. So I'm an artist, producer, songwriter. The style of music I make is more alternative R&B, alternative rap, but really situated in that old UK underground feel.
Cool. And so can you talk a bit maybe about some of your influences in how you've got to that sound, because it's quite a unique blend of things, which is often maybe not described in the way you might like it to be described, if I'm correct?
Yeah, it is a mad blend of things. I think, obviously, I'm a product of my environment. So I grew up during like UKG, like Jamie Duggan niche nightclub, like proper underground rave stuff. But at the same time, like my parents are all musicians, all jazz musicians.
Okay.
Their influences then were like things like Stevie. I was exposed to Prince like when I was 5 years old. So obviously that's gonna then creep in. So I'd like to say it's a mesh of the environment I grew up in, but then also I've got that tonal feel of the greats, like Stevie.
Cool. So you've always been around music then? Have always just done music? Like when did you kind of start doing it more than a hobby or a thing that you like?
Oh, honestly, I've always done music, but I won't lie, it wasn't a possibility. It wasn't something that I thought, oh, do you know what, this is something I could do, until just before when the pandemic started, actually.
Right.
And then I realised I had time, I put out a song and it did well. But prior to that, I've always been around music. Everyone in my family plays an instrument. I grew up in the church, so I had an instrument in my hand from like the age of a child. And I'm lucky in that sense.
Okay, awesome. So can you talk a bit about your process of how you're approaching music at the moment when you're making music?
Honestly, and this might sound like a bit of a cop-out, I'm just trying to live as much as possible. I feel like once, like there's a great saying from someone I like, none of you will know who it is, but I know, and he's always like, life's hard, this is easy. So I find that like a lot of my inspiration comes through just going out and experiencing the hell that is life. No, life's great. it's great. But that's mainly where my writing influences come from. I try to experience as much music as possible. I do this really nerdy thing where every Friday, probably less so now, but every Friday I'll like sit down and just start playing any project that has come out on New Music Friday. I'll just like listen to every album that has come out that day.
Awesome. And so as an artist based in Wales, or was based in Wales, you're now living in London, you want to talk about some of the pros and cons of where you were based and how that's influenced your music growing up?
When we were talking about influences earlier, actually, my cousins were such a big influence in terms of they lived in London, and every time they'd always be, I don't actually know why, but every summer they'd just be there like for the whole summer. I'd be so annoyed if my parents are like, yo, you're going with your auntie for the summer. But so I like spent a lot of time with them, and then like obviously their influences coming from London, being young black boys in London, like kind of crept into my influences. I actually can't remember what the question was. I'm so
just
sorry.
So what the difference is, maybe the pros and the cons of being based in the different places.
So I think there is everyone's story is different. I think being able to be in Wales makes me so much different from any other person coming out of like the UK at the moment because my experience was different. But it gets to a point then where you don't necessarily see where the bar is. You don't know what the bar is. And then you go to London and then you wake up and around every corner everyone is more talented than you are. Then you're like, okay, like I should probably, I don't know, it keeps you honest. If that
Do you think that's more of a perception than a reality though?
I thought it was a perception, but it's more, I think it's because there is more, obviously there's more people there, right? Yeah. And there's more people doing what you are doing. So in that case, there's going to be a lot, not necessarily the talent isn't better, but the amount of people there is bigger, of course.
Sure.
It's a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of then realise that, oh, great, yeah, even though I'm the only person doing what I'm doing in Wales, there's about like 10 other people doing the same thing as I'm doing in London, and they're just as good. So maybe not, I think more talented is a bad way to say it. I think that it's just the numbers. And that kind of then pushed me to realise that like, okay, right, if I really want to be good at this, I need to put in my 10,000 hours. I need to put in the work so that I stand out from the amount of people that are also trying to do this.
Sure. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, we've been following the trajectory of your career at PRS Foundation for a while. Obviously, you've accessed a lot of funding opportunities across that period. So we're going to do a quick whistle-stop tour of all the different grants you've got and what they were for. So settle in. So the first thing you received from PRS Foundation was our International Showcase Fund to go to M for Montreal, which was in 2022, I think. Which is interesting because that fund normally comes last, but you got it first. So what was that sort of experience like? And you being shipped off to Montreal, which was in partnership with Focus Wales, who do lots of showcasing internationally.
It was so good. It was so good. I didn't know what to expect until about 20 minutes before, and the promoter was like, "Oh, I hope you don't mind, but we've released more tickets on the door, even though it's like it's packed." And we were like, "What?" So I think Chris is there. We were like, we didn't expect anyone. We didn't think anyone was gonna come. So when he said that, we were like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And he's like, "Oh, yes, it's sold out tonight, so we're just gonna push some more tickets." I was like, "Yeah, okay." And the vibe was so good. I think if anyone has the opportunity to play or go to that festival, definitely go. I think it's. I don't know what it is about Canadians, but they just love music, right? Yeah. Like down to their core, and people in that crowd had no idea what they were going to experience that night, but they knew that there was something that they could could enjoy, and they showed up for it. Awesome. Which was beautiful. But that was our first international. Maybe I don't know. I'm getting old, but it was great. Yeah, it was great. A really good moment of that as well is where did we fly from? New York, and it was cold in New York, right? And then we got in, and the pilot was like, "Oh, by the way, we just had a little bit of snow." Blah, blah, blah. So I'm like asleep, and then I look out the window. I'm like, a little bit of snow. I was like, that place was covered in it. It was insane. But sorry, tangent, but that was great. Yeah,
that's great. So quite an experience, though. You felt. Did that have much of an impact on your performance, how you approach performing, what you thought you could do, or where you were in your career at that particular point?
Yeah, I think it made us. We realised that what we had there was it was very run and gun, right? It was minimal setup. I think I was the only one with ears, and then it was just get out there, perform, and provide vibes. And we realised it could be done like that. And then later on, I did then make the decision to push it forward and change it a bit. But that was the kind of moment that I was like, okay, cool, let's go and have it.
Cool, awesome. So M for Montreal are actually here, I believe. So if you're interested, maybe not in the room, but they're here at this event. So you might want to seek them out if that sounds like something you want to do. So that sounds awesome. And then after that, you received our PPL Momentum Accelerator Fund, which is a fund specifically for artists based in Wales. It's in partnership with Arts Council of Wales, and it's kind of it's for artists when you're just about, you feel like you're getting some traction and you're about to break out of Wales and go maybe nationally and getting a bit of traction. And it's to help bridge the gap between our early career funds and then our top tier funds for different parts of the country where there's maybe a little less infrastructure. People need that extra push. So yeah, can you just tell us about what that was for, if you can remember, and then
my gosh, yeah,
how that went?
No, that was I think that went straight into the recording of Blood, Sweat and Fears. I know there was it was half and half in terms of with that and Power Up, but yeah, that was I had made can't remember my projects. Can't remember. I had made. It's not called Kings. No, The Pursuit. Yeah. And I kind of was like, all right, I knew I wanted to write another project. I hadn't written, I think, for a while. I think it was like 5 months. And then I knew there was something I wanted to say with this. And then so I applied for that, mainly just so I could, like, things like, it sounds weird, but the stuff around making music is the most expensive thing, and I think a lot of musicians would know that and understand that. I'm lucky that I'm proficient in production and I mix my own stuff and play my own instruments and etc. So I'm very lucky that way. But I knew that this time round, if I wanted to make an impact in how it is presented to the world, I'd need some money behind that. And at the time I was working a minimum wage job, and I was like, oh, I'm just trying to stay alive, so I'd rather that go on that. But so it was so helpful. That project would not have been even started, I don't think, if I hadn't then applied for that funding, awesome. which was so important. But that went to the writing, the creation, also just teaching myself things. I did a couple of courses on mixing because the mix on the project before, boy, if I listen to it now, I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it was really helpful.
Yeah. So you really did think about using that to level yourself up, and in many ways of what you're in and how you process your work and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, because I mainly thought, yes, I could just pay someone else to do it, but then I thought in the long run, like the money runs out, right? And I didn't know if that would ever, I'd have money again, right? So I thought, right, let me teach myself to do it so that in the future it's never a thing that I have to pay for. Or basically, I'm trying to in my creative life, I'm trying to reduce the barriers to creativity as much as possible. Like whether it's possessing an acoustic guitar or a upright piano, like things like I want to be able to make music without anything stopping me from releasing it. And that's what that went to.
Cool. So already at that point when you were applying for that, you were already thinking about how am I going to make this sustainable for myself in the long term?
And I think that's really important for musicians to think of. I think it's great getting excited when the money lands on your plate and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I've got this money, how do I spend it? But then you've got to think, if this is something that you want forever, if you want to do this in the long term, you have to think of a sustainable way to do that, because, like I said, the money runs out.
Eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one thing that people are looking at in applications when people apply to us is this helping this person get to that point? Are they thinking about how they're going to be sustainable and how this is going to work in the long term? So, yeah, great that you were already thinking about at that point. How can you talk a bit about maybe the timing of that grant and how impactful that was then? Like when you're applying for it at the right time to do the right thing, did that kind of pay off? Is that?
Yeah. So this is such a good question, and like I think the timing of grants is. There's some luck involved. You could be ready to receive the grant and your application could be great and etc. And then when you go to it, it's kind of like you're not as ready or the world wasn't as ready for you to have that grant as you are ready to have that grant. If that makes sense, I think that's the best way to voice it. Is it really the world matters. So what I found with that was, even though I was ready for the grant and I knew exactly what to do with it, the places that then I was putting it into that wasn't myself, weren't I wasn't popping like that, and it's a humbling thing, it's not that deep really. Like, it's at the time you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything I can. I got this grant. I see the money running out. The pressure's piling in. But then you just also have to think like that's the case sometimes. This is the industry that we're in. That it's not always on your timing. But what it did do was, like, it was such a learning experience into, I knew as an artist where my money now should go, regardless of, like, I knew what would perform and what wasn't performing, regardless of where I was in my career. But then I was like, all right, cool, right. I understand that if I ever have this opportunity again, or if I ever are in an opportunity that I can spend my own money, I know this is where it's going, and etc. But yeah, for some other artists, I know other artists that money came in and they, like, even they were ready and the world was ready for them, and it's just like popped off. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's that symbiotic relationship that you kind of need.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, great. It's like the grant itself is not an opportunity. You have to have that opportunity at the right time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't work. Yeah, for sure. So after that, you were selected for a Power Up program. So for anyone who's not aware, Power Up is a long-term initiative that supports black music creators and industry professionals, and it addresses anti-black racism and racial disparities in the music sector. So as well as grant support, it offers a network, and there's now 160, I think, alumni in that network of people working together, sharing experience and best practice, all that sort of stuff. It's in partnership with Beggars Group and YouTube and the Black Music Coalition. It's a really great, amazing thing, and it's amazing that it's still going. But do you want to talk about what the project was that you received Power Up for, and then maybe we can get into how the network works.
So that was then on the tail end of Blood, Sweat and Fears, and it was more about, like, developing my live show around that, which was so important. I think that grant is the live music that you saw yesterday. That grant is the reason that happened. It allowed us to make a lot of changes and decisions in how we presented our. I say our because it's easier for me to talk about myself when I'm not talking about myself. It just allowed us to sit and think, all right, cool, what can we do? Whereas prior, you're kind of chasing your tail. You're like, oh, all right, we got a gig here. Let's turn up, do this, and we sat and we were like, all right, cool. How do we get the biggest quality out of this project? And Sam and Chris are here. They're in my band, and I can remember sitting down being like, listen, we're all musicians. Like, we love music. We love going to live shows and seeing, like, musicians be absolutely insane. Like, that's what we want. We want to be inspired when we go to a show. We want to feel things. And we knew right then that was the ethos of the Lemfrec live sound. Making sure that we put the care and production into, like, the tracks that you hear live aren't the tracks that you're going to hear when you sit in your room. And making sure we put that care into the production, and that Power Up grant went to that.
Cool.
I was able to buy an Apollo with that grant, and what we do now is so boring and technical. Oh my god, I'm not even gonna bore you. But what we're able to do now is, like, run an in-ear system. We're able to run clicks in our ear, with cues in our ear and things like that, whilst, like, everything, you guys won't even hear that, but it's a madness in our head. It's not a madness in my head, it's a madness in their head. I'm like, turn that off. They're great with it. But that's what that grant allowed, and I wouldn't have been able to get to that point without it. It's like that stuff is really expensive, like insanely expensive, and I think my live show now, and I think the boys would agree, like, would go toe to toe with, like, many live shows, and that's kind of as a result of that. Awesome. But the other thing that Power Up did, it wasn't just the money. It was kind of and this is going to sound really weird, but it was a nice, there's good reality checks when you're a musician, like through your career, where you meet people and they're able to explain to you why the opportunities aren't happening, or the things aren't happening, etc. And because of that cohort and the amount of people that are in that cohort, I was able to ask a lot of questions. The Beggars group, Molly from Beggars, has honestly changed my career like you wouldn't believe. I sat and just asked the questions. I was like, what's the deal? What numbers do I really need to be hitting to be like thinking, oh, I should be having a deal, like I should be, do you know what I mean? Like, and I think as a musician, because it's a very intrinsic thing, and you're on your own, you make music on your own, and it's very, very rare that you meet superstars to be like, oh, by the way, like, what numbers are you doing, so I can know, like, do you know what I mean, in comparison. And like Molly just kind of, she was like, in terms of marketing, helped me. She spent so much time, and I cannot thank her enough. There was a moment where I was just like, is she gonna ask me to pay her for this? Like, I was like, so I was trying to sound out. I was like, by the way, and she was like, oh no, I'm just like here to help. I was prepared to, but I was hoping she was like, nah. But yeah, she was just here to help. But that's what that cohort brought, and Yao is great in terms of like, can you say, yeah, man, like I'm struggling with this, straight up. He's like, don't worry, got an email straight away. Do you know, like, it's actually insane. It's insane. So I learned so much from the business of music from that initiative.
Cool, awesome. So Power Up, much like we have a program called Key Change, which is a gender equity program. They kind of sit outside of our normal strand of grants. And in the case of Power Up, it's completely black run, black led, and it's co-founded with a guy called Ben Winter, who runs it with Yao and in partnership with us, and we manage it on the admin side. And that building of that network and having access to not just industry but your peers and other artists as well, how impactful has that been for you, and do you still tap into that network?
Yeah, when I can, and I try to offer back when I can as well, in terms of like creative input and etc. when people ask for it. But there's a massive group, and you find that you ask a question and someone gets back to you. I was struggling for venues. Someone was like, oh, here you go, here's a list of venues and stuff like that. And it's just so helpful. It is so helpful. I can't praise that enough. I actually think we take it as a cohort for granted a bit, because sometimes I sit there and I'm like, there's no other way that you'd get this information. There's no other way. I think someone asked the other day, has anyone got an email for someone at YouTube to help us, and then someone posted in. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like I said at the beginning, it's something that removes the barriers to success, essentially, right? Which is so important.
Cool. So what would you say to any black music creatives or professionals in Wales who might be thinking about applying for that?
I'd say take the effort, do the thing, do it. Make sure your application is hot and tight, but go and do it. I think they're so important. I think what they're doing is so important. You really realise, and as I move through the industry and like become a bit more successful in my craft, I find that then it's things, the people that I now talk to that are outside of that know these things. I would never have got to that point to have met them to talk about those things. So it's so important. I actually can't stress that enough.
Awesome. So we'd say it's important for the industry to support these things as well, and having that relationship with actual industry involved in the program is cool.
I think, and if we don't, we lose the essence of like diversity and creativity. I think in terms of when we talk about barriers and financial barriers and knowledge barriers, if you don't give it to a certain group of people, if you don't give it to the ones that need it the most, I'm telling you now, your music's not going to be as good. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like I don't know if any of you have been to New York at the moment, but like artists can't afford to live in New York, and when you talk to people there, you realise they haven't had an independent scene since in a long time, because it's just not possible, and you feel it, and it's it's worrying. Like you don't like it, and they worry there, and they all move to LA which is just expensive, but at least like, do you know what I mean? At least a coffee isn't a tenner. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. So I think if we don't fund these initiatives, you find that the art isn't as good. And that's what we all want, right?
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. So from there, you've most recently received internally what we call Big Momentum, the PPL Momentum Fund, which is in partnership with PPL Creative Wales and Arts Council Northern Ireland. So PPL are a key funder of PRS Foundation as well across International Showcase Fund, Momentum Accelerator, Big Momentum, our TDN network, of which Focus Wales is part of that as well. So they're involved in so much stuff that we do as well. Can you talk a little bit about what that funding was for, and did being part of Power Up influence what you would have then gone for that for?
Yeah. So Big Momentum was how I see it, like the culmination of all the knowledge that I've taken in, all the mistakes I've taken in, or everything, and kind of use that for that. It's funded tour because touring is almost impossible. It is impossible these days. But that would, if I hadn't had that, it wouldn't have been. We just couldn't do it. And as well, the last project, the last EP that I did, it funded studio time. It funded. I've moved out of my bedroom now. I think that's a a sign of progression in the music industry if you're not making music in your bedroom anymore. But like one of the tracks was made, but the majority it was made outside, and that funded that time, that effort. I think I'm very proud of this work, mainly because I was allowed the opportunity to just spend the time on it. Whereas with previous efforts, it's been like, I'm proud of them, but it was like, all right, this has got to go out, otherwise it's never going to go out because I haven't got time to sit on it and do what I want to do. So yeah, Big Momentum was, I think, like what I mentioned at the beginning, where you have to learn and have to put in yourself in positions with funding. Think of it as a game of chess. It's like you're not trying to win the game in 5 moves, right? It's a long-term thing, and I think then Big Momentum helps you then like checkmate, if that's a good analogy. It's putting yourself in the right place and having the right strategy, thinking about these things. Where is your money going to? I'm of the time of Facebook ads. Previously, when I had it, I was using Facebook ads, but was just doing, this is going to sound so boring, I'm so sorry, was just doing clicks. So I was just like, I just wanted clicks. Clicks is great, wicked, brilliant, but clicks don't mean people are listening to your music. So what this did help me. I then went on a course with this one, where I was like, right, why are my clicks not translating into streams when everyone's telling me that Facebook ads are the ones? And then I did the course and realized actually it's supposed to be a conversion ad, not just a click ad. Do you know what I mean? So things like that, I was able then to be like, right, okay, I understand. And then now the money I was spending wasn't costing me more, like, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, it's things like that.
I mean, that might be boring, but it's important. Like that detail is key.
So you wouldn't believe, I was talking to Perry, who's Mace's manager, about it, and he was like, oh yeah, for clicks. I was like, no, it's not clicks. I don't know why no one told me this, but it's not clicks, it's conversions. But like things like that, right? And you have to make the mistake. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's an easy mistake to make, but you have to make the mistake. But then what Big Momentum did, I was then like, right, I've made the mistakes now. This is now going to be, for example, another really good example. When we were doing PR with previous funding, I found that, and I'm so sorry if there is anyone in print here, and I love you guys so much, please don't stop writing about me, but I found that where I was in my career, print wasn't what I wanted to have at the top of the funnel. It wasn't the main thing that I wanted to strive for. Yes, it's a great ego thing when you're like, oh, I'm Googleable, oh, very brilliant. But as an artist and being a successful artist, it wasn't priority. So then what we did was we didn't put so much time into print this time around, and we moved more into radio and playlisting, because that's where I was as an artist. Now, down the line, if I'm a bigger artist and we're talking about brand and pushing brand, then we return to print. So it's things like that, that having that climb up in the funnel is so important. Obviously, it's specific to what artist you are, right? I think rock bands actually do translate better on blogs and prints than other genres, but you don't know until you know, right? So things like that is so important.
Yeah, that's a key point, isn't it? There's no one way to do it. It's what works for you is what's important, and at each step of each grant, and the more you've learned through Power Up, you've sort of tweaked and refined your approach of what you're doing, and making it work for yourself, which is fantastic. So along this journey you also won the Welsh Music Prize. How was that? Can we talk about how important was that for you?
Insane, absolutely insane. I think it's common knowledge, but like I was really struggling with the idea of being a musician. I just couldn't see a way through. I couldn't see the pin moving, and I was like, I don't know if I have the energy to then keep this up, which is fair, and all musicians will go through it, and I don't feel bad for feeling those feelings. I think it was a massive learning point for me. But then we came back from South by Southwest, and I called it a day, said to the boys, I was like, I think this is it. And then I started making We've Been Here, and not for me, for someone else. And then I was like, oh, this is a good track, I'm gonna drop it, whatever, and then just no pressure. Then the Welsh Music Prize happened. The track did well. It was, honestly, I'm not one of those that think, oh, the universe tells you whatever. But the track did well, and I was like, oh, but I was still adamant. I was hurt. I was in pain. So I was like, nah, it's a day after this. And then Welsh Music Prize happened, and I know everyone says this, but the shock was nuts. I think the shock was mainly because I believed in the project. I knew it was great. And I think I got to a point where I was like, I actually don't care if it wins. I can remember the week before, I hadn't listened to it, and I just put it on in my headphones and just sat and listened to it front to back, and I hadn't listened to it in a long time. And at the end, I was like, I'm really proud of this thing.
Cool.
I'm so glad that I made it. So regardless of the result next week, whatever. And then I was talking to Heled, I think. I can't remember. And we were in the back room, and I was trying to tell her, I was like, oh, it doesn't even matter if you win or not. Don't worry. It's not about the win. You got here, etc. And I was trying to explain to her, it's cool. This award doesn't matter. Don't worry. And then sat back down next to my sister, and I was just chilling, waiting for them to announce. And I think that the lineup that year was, every year is great, but that year I think I listened to every project on the shortlist, and they were all so good. Yeah, they were all so good. Alicia's over there, and hers was incredible. And you had Gruff Reese, you had do you know what I mean? And I can remember being this is I couldn't call it. I couldn't, obviously, I want Alicia to win, do you know what I mean? Because we're friends. Yeah, it's right, do you know what I mean? It's right, because of it. But I just couldn't call it. And then I knew it wasn't me. I don't know what that is. I was just I know it's not me, but I don't know who's going to win. And then when Sian said my name, I was just not even thinking about it. And then I looked at my sister, and she's hit me, and I'm like, what? Wait, what? And then it was. I actually can't remember from there to the end. Yeah. They put a bottle of champagne in my hand, and that got drunk very quickly. Very quickly.